Prior to the release of Super Smash Bros. Melee, the only region to receive any games from the Fire Emblem series was Japan. It wasn't until Melee that international regions widely learned about the Fire Emblem series due to the inclusion of Marth and Roy. Because of the popularity of these characters in Smash, Fire Emblem began being localized and released internationally. Since Melee, each Smash game has included at least one new Fire Emblem rep, so the roster of heroes from this franchise is now pretty big. So let's take a look at their costume origins, starting of course with the Hero King himself, Marth. Marth's design in Melee is based on his appearance in Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem, where his armor is mostly blue. This color is also meant to represent the player units, which appear blue in the Fire Emblem series. Marth's red costume is based on the enemy units from the Fire Emblem series. These are always represented by red-themed sprites in the game. Marth's green costume similarly references non-playable characters in the Fire Emblem series. These characters vary within the games. Sometimes you need to protect them, sometimes they just simply are there, and sometimes you can even recruit them to your party. These are generally represented by green-themed sprites. This trio of blue, red, and green costumes can be found across most of the Fire Emblem characters within Smash. Marth's black costume is most likely a Smash original, meant to be a counterpart to the next Marth costume, his white costume. This outfit is based on Leaf, the protagonist from Fire Emblem Thracia 776. Leaf was also featured in Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. Moving to Brawl, Marth kept all of his costume swaps and received only one new one, a brighter blue costume. This better references his appearance in Fire Emblem Mystery of the Emblem, a Japanese exclusive Fire Emblem game originally for the Super Famicom. Mystery of the Emblem was remade in 2010 for the Nintendo DS, also as a Japan exclusive. The title of this remake was Fire Emblem: New Mystery of the Emblem, Heroes of Light and Shadow. Marth's appearance in this game is largely what his Smash for Wii U and 3DS design was based on. But despite this, Marth's original 5 costumes still maintain their specific origins. However, his new costume from Brawl has been replaced to now mimic the color scheme of his appearance as an Einherjar from Fire Emblem Awakening. This design is in turn based on Lucina's design from the same game. Additionally, Marth gains 2 costumes, both of which reference Roy. The first is a yellow costume, referencing Roy's similar costume from Melee. The second gives Marth more vivid colors, a reference to Roy's appearance in Fire Emblem The Binding Blade. It makes sense that Marth has these Roy costumes because Roy originally wasn't meant to be in Smash for 3DS and Wii U. Of course, this changed with the introduction of the Smash Ballot and DLC characters, but at the time when Marth was being developed and his costumes were being decided, Roy wasn't in the game, so these are a nice homage to Roy either way. Speaking of which, let's take a look at Roy, Marth's clone originally from Super Smash Bros. Melee. While a clone of Marth was always planned for Melee, there was debate on which character it should be. In an old Famitsu interview, director Masahiro Sakurai said that he went to Intelligent Systems for approval on including Leaf for Melee. While there, he got a sneak peek at the then upcoming Game Boy Advance Fire Emblem title. Based on this, he decided Roy would be a better fit, and his fire effects would give him a further distinction from Marth. Roy's inclusion would also generate further hype and interest in the new Fire Emblem game. Roy's costumes are similar to Marth's in origin as well. His red costume references enemy units. He's given a more dominantly blue costume to reference the player units. And his green costume of course references the NPC units. Finally, just as Marth had an original costume, Roy's yellow costume is also a Smash original. Now Roy obviously was not in Brawl, but he returned as a downloadable fighter in Smash for 3DS and Wii U. He's been redesigned since his appearance in Melee, given updated armor and made to look a bit older. This design is a mixture of his original appearance in Fire Emblem The Binding Blade, as well as his appearance in Fire Emblem Awakening as an Einherjar. And of course, Roy receives a handful of new costumes as well in his return to the series. First, he receives a purple and red costume, a reference to Marcus, an ally paladin from Fire Emblem The Binding Blade. Next, his blue costume is updated to reference Eliwood, Roy's father from Fire Emblem Blazing Sword. Roy's purple costume references Zephiel, the primary antagonist from Binding Blade. And finally, a pink costume, hinting at Cecilia, a mage general and Roy's mentor from Binding Blade. The next Fire Emblem character to make a playable appearance in Smash is Ike, who replaced Roy in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Ike's Brawl design is based on his Ranger class appearance from Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Ike also has 5 additional costumes in Brawl. The first is a yellow outfit, an homage to Ike's father, Grail, from Path of Radiance. The second is a red outfit, again a reference to the enemy units from the Fire Emblem series. Ike's blue outfit bears a similarity to Sigurd, a protagonist from Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War. Ike's green outfit is based on the NPC units from the Fire Emblem series. Ike's final outfit is referred to as an ordinary soldier outfit by the Brawl Dojo website. There's a possibility it could refer to certain classes from Path of Radiance, or it could just be a simple generic costume. Moving to Smash for 3DS and Wii U, Ike's design has been updated based on his look as a hero in Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn, the sequel to Path of Radiance. His yellow, red, and blue costumes maintain their original origins, however. Ike's green costume now references Jeffrey, an ally in Path of Radiance. Ike's new brown color scheme also references a character from Path of Radiance. This time, Micaiah, one of the protagonists. Ike's black costume bears resemblance to the Black Knight, an antagonist from both Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. Finally, Ike's white costume references Chrom, a protagonist from Fire Emblem Awakening. According to a Famitsu article, Sakurai considered adding Chrom to Smash for 3DS and Wii U, but he found he might be redundant alongside both Marth and Ike. So, as a result, Ike simply got a Chrom skin. Finally, let's look at new Fire Emblem characters added in Smash for 3DS and Wii U, starting with Robin, who hails from Fire Emblem Awakening. Robin's design is based on both the default appearance and name of the avatar character from Fire Emblem Awakening. Of course, the player can change the appearance and gender of this character, so Robin's costumes reflect that with 4 male and 4 female appearances. Now, I know across the vast number of Fire Emblem games, many different characters share similar color schemes and appearances, so you can fill many characters as references for Robin's costumes. I'm merely going to point out the potentially strongest references, but feel free to comment other references I don't mention down below. Robin's green costume can of course be the NPC units, but we can dive a bit deeper than that. Green Robin can also serve as a reference to the map sprite of Mark, the customizable tactician from Fire Emblem Blazing Sword. Regardless of this tactician's settings, its map sprite remained green and yellow. This is a clever reference because Mark was the first customizable character in the series, and would be a foundation for the avatar system in more modern Fire Emblem games. Robin's red costume can reference Anna, a recurring character from across many of the Fire Emblem games, and who most recently became a playable character in Fire Emblem Awakening and Fire Emblem Fates. Next up is a blue costume, this time referencing Chris, the avatar from Fire Emblem New Mystery of the Emblem, Heroes of Light and Shadow. This costume also has a similar origin as Robin's green costume. Chris is the identity of the very first actual avatar. Mark was the first customizable character, but was merely a tactician and far less involved in the actual story and plotline than an avatar. Robin's yellow costume has 2 potential origins. The first is a reference to Lisa, a main character from Fire Emblem Awakening. It could also potentially hint at Avel, a recurring character from Genealogy of the Holy War and Thracia 776, as well as a bonus unit from Fire Emblem Awakening. Robin's next costume contains a reference that is actually outside of the Fire Emblem universe. The design looks very similar to the appearance of the White Mage from the Final Fantasy series, a white cloak with red trim. Finally, Pink Robin has 2 potential comparisons. The first is a reference to Sarah from Fire Emblem Blazing Sword. The second, a reference to Olivia, a dancer found in Fire Emblem Awakening. Next, let's look at Marth's distant descendant, Lucina. Lucina was originally meant to be an alternate costume for Marth contained within one character, because of Lucina pretending to be Marth in Fire Emblem Awakening. She was given her own character slot, however, due to her attacks working slightly differently from Marth. Lucina's costumes are more straightforward than Robin's, and immediately reference various female characters throughout Fire Emblem Awakening. Her first costume turns her hair green and gives her green and purple armor, referencing the Manakete Noe. Lucina's next costume turns her hair red and gives her black armor, based on the Wyvern rider Shershay. Her fourth costume also turns Lucina's hair red, though slightly brighter, and gives her white and red armor. This is meant to emulate the appearance of Cordelia, a Pegasus Knight. Next comes another green-haired costume, this time with red armor, a reference to Tiki, a Manakete who worked with both Marth and Lucina during her life. Lucina's next costume turns her blonde, another reference to Lisa, Chrom's younger sister. The next costume gives Lucina black hair and dark armor, hinting at Tharja, the Dark Mage. Lucina receives pale blonde hair and pink and purple armor in her final costume, a reference to Sumya. Finally, one of the last few characters to be released as DLC was Lord Qhorin from Fire Emblem Fates. This is the avatar character from Fates, so just like with Robin, Qhorin is split up into half male, half female costumes. Qhorin's place in Smash for 3DS and Wii U resembles Roy's place in Melee, meant to introduce players to a new Fire Emblem hero prior to the game's release. The only difference here is that Fire Emblem now exists internationally, while it only existed really in Japan when Melee was released. Of course, Qhorin's first two costumes reference the default male and female avatar appearance from Fire Emblem Fates. Just as with nearly every other Fire Emblem character, you have to have a red costume to reference the enemy units from the franchise. It's also possible that this costume contains hints of Hoshiden attire, who have a common theme of red in their armor. Qhorin's orange outfit could reference Oboro, with an orange outfit accented with blue. Of course, the hair color is drastically different. The blue outfit references the player character's map appearance as a blue sprite. Qhorin's pink costume could be a Smash original, or it could be inspired by Felicia, who has pink hair. It could also be inspired by various Norian armor, which can be seen with pink trim. This green outfit possibly references Kaze, the ninja from Fire Emblem Fates. There is also, of course, the simpler possibility it's simply meant to once again represent the NPC units. Finally, Qhorin's black costume bears a remarkable resemblance to Lucina's black costume, so this may be the intended comparison. It's also possible this costume is based on Nyx, the Dark Mage from Fire Emblem Fates. And that covers it for all of the Fire Emblem characters. It's weird that we've had only 3 different Fire Emblem characters since Brawl, and after Smash for 3DS and Wii U came out, we now have double that. It just seems really interesting that so many different Fire Emblem characters are in the games now. Especially considering when Melee came out, Fire Emblem didn't even exist anywhere but Japan. It just shows how popular the franchise has gotten. Next time, I'm definitely going to cover Metroid, Star Fox, and Captain Falcon. I've been sort of teasing that for the last couple videos, so we're definitely tackling those next time. But in the comments, let me know which characters or series you'd like me to do after that. Could be the retro characters, the third parties, smaller franchises. Let me know down below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you'll see the next video as soon as it's published. Thanks for watching, guys, and have an awesome day.